Courtside Monday.
Very excited to welcome in our next guest. You see him on your television screens when you're watching Blazer games. He is the studio analyst for the Portland Trail Blazers and Root Sports Northwest, Francis Williams. Francis, welcome into Courtside Monday.
Thank you very much. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, well, thank you. I got to say thank you for answering a text message from a complete stranger and jumping on this show with me, man. I love it.
Well, my whole deal with the Blazers has been pretty fluid, especially this week. We want to make sure that we wish Lamar Hurd the best. He's been a little under the weather, so we've had to kind of change the rotation up. But, I'm happy to be able to fill in, and I just hope he gets healthy. But, no, I'm anxious to talk to you guys. It should be fun.
Yeah, well speaking of Lamar, everyone was kind of not in the know. Fans were going, where's Lamar on my TV? Radio fans were going, where's Michael on my radio? And you got the chance to call in from the bullpen to call those last two games with Travis Demers. What was that like, man?
Well, I actually cut my teeth on radio when I first started working in the media. I worked for KJR up here doing a lot of color. So it didn't. I felt like it went pretty well. I thought Travis and I had some synergy there. So I thought it didn't take us too long to get rolling. But I enjoyed it, and it always helps to do that when you get a win.
Yeah, absolutely. And you talk about cutting your teeth up there in Seattle, and I kind of had that question for you because I used to work for NBC, the former rights holders of the Blazers, and then there was the turnover to Root, and they changed some things up, brought in some new faces, and you were one of them. You're not new to the game, but this particular market, Portland, might not have known who Francis Williams was. So, who is Francis Williams to the Blazer fan who doesn't know?
Well, if we talk about the Portland market, I did a ton of WCC games. Then a lot of times it was the University of Portland that I would be covering. But, I've always kind of felt like, yes, I'm based in Seattle, but I'm a Northwest guy. I've been in the Northwest the majority of my life. And, man, as Neil likes to say, I'm just a basketball lifer. But I've worked for the Sonics. I worked for the Charlotte Hornets. I'm now fortunate enough to work for the Blazers. I did Adidas Grassroots for a number of years, which definitely kind of led the way to some of the things that I'm doing now in the media because of the network that has allowed me to establish. But I've always paid attention to every level of basketball, from pros to peewees, as I like to say. So I'm an NBA fan. I'm a basketball fan. So I may be somewhat foreign to Blazer fans specifically, but I've been in the Northwest and been a part of the media in the Northwest for a long time.
Yes, you have. And I'll tell you this, Francis, your knowledge and love for the game, it comes through on these television broadcasts, came through on the radio broadcast this weekend. The insight is wonderful. So I want to start asking you about this team in particular. First off, last few games, even in the losses, the defense has started to really tighten up. And I think that's largely in part to obviously getting Gary Payton the second out there. What have you seen from him and how maybe that's changed the defense a little bit?
I would definitely agree with you that GP2 has been a factor. And even in some of those tough losses that the Blazers, had to deal with, the defense wasn't the problem. So I just think the defense has been steadily improving. But then there was just a major hiccup with the lapse in shooting, which this is a good shooting team, but they just had one of those streaks where shots weren't falling, and then the late game execution in those couple of games there was a huge a huge factor in causing them to get some losses. But I really thought that even in the loss to Cleveland, you could see that things were kind of getting back to where they were, and it was just nice to have this Dallas team come in that is maybe a little bit shorthanded, but it was one of those matchups where they could really exploit some of the things that they really like to do. And it's cliche, but it is a miss or make league, and they're making shots again. So the early season success had a lot to do with how well they were shooting the ball, and a lot of their success is going to be totally dependent on that. And the shots are falling again, and it's not an oversimplification, but it is a huge factor in how successful this team will be because they have to shoot the ball well from three.
They got to get the shooters, that's for sure. The bench unit has been something a lot of people have focused on just for lack of production when it comes to scoring. But I think that can change here relatively quickly because A, GP2 can get his buckets when he needs them, but B here, Nasir Little coming back, really, he was a spark. He looked wonderful, wasn't afraid to shoot the shot. I mean, what are you seeing from him, and how do you think he can drastically change that point production and be that go-to guy off the bench?
Well, I'll answer the second question first. Yes, I do. I think with Nasir, I think you have to go back to last season when Nasir got hurt, and he had to spend a lot of time rehabbing. And you could see that his game was really starting to flourish, but now you've got to spend all of this time rehabbing as opposed to spending your time on skill development. So now you come into this season, he did not have a good training camp. And I think that, again, because he was coming off of an injury, and just when he was starting to hit his stride, he gets hurt again. And I think that it was, it should be pointed out that last night he gave the training staff a big shout out saying that they got him ready to be able to perform at the level that he thinks that he can. And I think last night he was coming off of an injury, but I think they took a little bit of extra time to make sure that he was ready. And last night, at least, he was ready to go. So the shots were there. The defense was there. He almost got a highlight tip dunk. So his legs and his energy and everything seemed to be there. So I absolutely think he's going to be a big contributor. And I also feel that until we get Winslow back, we still have not seen the roster in totality. And if they can, and everybody's nicked up. Let me say that everybody around the league's got somebody hurt. But if we can get everybody healthy and really see what this roster looks like when it's complete and healthy, until that happens, we just quite don't know what we have.
Yeah, absolutely. Francis Williams, your studio analyst for the Trailblazers, joining us right now on Courtside Monday. And I like that you bring up Winslow, Francis, because as I said before you got on, talked to my producer here, that I think people undersell just how important the people who were missing, like how important they were to that rotation. Because if you're losing GP2, Nasir, and Winslow, you're kind of losing your 6, 7, 8 in your rotation. That's a big chunk. Like, it's not small potatoes when you're losing those guys. So for the Blazers to be able to weather the storm, like getting big minutes from Watford and watching Jabari develop and Shaedon Sharpe, like that's completely invaluable to these young guys, right?
It is very valuable. And for the long term, if we're looking at the bigger picture, on down the line, those minutes will be invaluable. But right now, if you're trying to win, you can't have the babies, as Coach Billups called them, the babies being the ones coming off the bench and trying to sustain what the starters have put in place. You need those veteran guys, and that's the type of depth that you're trying to build by making the roster moves that they made. You're trying to build quality depth so there's no fall off when you go to your bench. And you can see that there are some glimpses of what you're trying to put in place, but unfortunately we keep have guys getting nicked up. But it looks like we might be close to having everybody healthy and being able to maybe make a big push.
With your knowledge of basketball at every level, Francis, like how tough can that be, knowing that, you know, you have to balance developing these young guys, but you also have to try to win basketball games. And as you said, Coach Billups has said as such many times, so we're playing with teenagers, or, you know, the bench is there for a reason. I have to play these starters 40 minutes. How tough is it to make those decisions?
Well, I don't think in this case, I don't think it's real tough, because I think you've got a group of guys that are all absolutely on the same page. Because with this rough patch that we just went through, there would be a lot of teams where there would be a lot of finger pointing and second guessing, and things would kind of be leaking out that something's not right in the locker room, whatever the case might be. But you've heard and seen none of that with this group, even though they've hit a rough patch. So I think everybody on this team knows their role, and they accept their role, and they go out and try to play their role to the highest level. And those young guys like Watford and Walker, as you said, and Shaedon Sharpe, those youngsters understand that they're in a great position to learn from some vets that have been through it, and I think they accept that. And when their number is called, they're ready. They go out and do their best. Their best is not always good enough, but that's a part of the development. But I think everybody on this roster right now is all rowing in the same direction, and I don't think there's any dissension whatsoever. And that makes it easy for Coach Billups to make the decisions that he has to make.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you talk about rolling in the right direction, I think one guy in particular who's really got it going in the right direction and hasn't let off the gas in a good way in recent weeks here is Jusuf Nurkic. He can, in his time here in Portland, he's had times where he can be inconsistent, he can be up and down, but he's so easy to love because when he's up, he's an absolute difference maker. And you've seen that in these last few games. And so how important is Jusuf Nurkic to you for long-term success for this team?
He's very important. He's an easy target. I've never, even from a distance before I started working directly with the Blazers, I've always appreciated Nurk because what Coach Billups has done with him has really got him to understand how valuable he is to this team as a screener. Now, he gets some calls against him, and he does do some things when he's screening sometimes where he's not set, and it is an offensive foul. But I think that he has embraced his role on this team as a screener, and then when he is a screener, when he rolls aggressively and goes to the basket and plays physical and not with finesse, just go ahead and be physical. And if they call an offensive foul on you because you went to the basket aggressively, we'll take that over you playing, tipping the ball to yourself and different things like that. And as you said, I think here recently he has given optimum effort in trying to play the way that they want him to play, where he can also be the most effective. And I think tomorrow night will be a big test to where he is, because obviously he's going to be matched up against the Joker.
Yeah, and if you know, and Blazer fans know, if there's one guy he loves to play against, it's the Joker. Yep.
So I'm anxious to see. Now, granted, Denver is probably the toughest place in the league to play to play at, and it's a very difficult place to play and to win. But I'm very anxious to see how the Blazers respond to playing better. Now you're playing against the Western Conference's best team, at least by record. I'm anxious to see how tomorrow night goes.
Yeah, absolutely. And you just mentioned Coach Billups really instilling in Nurk how important he is as a screener. And everyone here always argues and knows how good Damian Lillard is in that pick and roll. And it's kind of something they've gone back to here in recent games. So, I mean, that and just having that guy and Damian Lillard, like, it's not coincidental that he started to have a resurgence, Dame that is, in scoring when Nurk has really found that role, right?
I totally agree. Those guys have a relationship. They trust each other. They trust each other because you see Dame make some passes to Nurk, and you just sometimes go, ooh, is that going to get there? But he trusts that Nurk is going to catch it and do what he's supposed to do with it. And as teams, Dame has taken on the leadership role of, the team needed to make some adjustments. And so you see Dame kind of going back to being Dame, not in a selfish way, because the 50 wasn't selfish, the 40 wasn't selfish. It was just him doing what he thought the team needed. And then you come in the last night game and you get him with 40 and three guys with 20. So what he did on the offensive end, and Nurk plays a big role in that. What he did on the offensive end, I think it has freed everybody up, and I think in particular it's freed up Josh Hart, where they've got Josh Hart understanding that when you have an open look, you need to take it, because that frees up other guys when you take those open shots and you're not turning them down. So the trust that Nurk and Dame have with each other, I think, is where it all starts. Obviously, it all starts with Dame, but that trust that they have with those pick and rolls and some of the things they do on the interior, it's vital to the Blazers' success on the offensive end.
All right, Francis Williams, studio analyst for the Trailblazers and Root Sports Northwest, joining us here on Courtside Monday. Now, Francis, that's a lot of basketball. Whenever I get guests on, I like to peel back the curtain and get to know them just outside of what we see on TV all the time. So, Francis, I want to ask you, in your time here with the Blazers, has there just been a moment that has stood out to you as just your favorite moment, whether it be calling the games, being with the team, or with the fans, just something that's made you go, man, this place is awesome?
Well, my favorite moment was, and it is very easy, it was last season, because, last season when I really got thrust into this role, it was again because Michael had come down ill and they needed someone to fill in. And now I had a relationship previously with Joe Cronin. I've known Joe because I met Joe through Chad Buchanan when Chad was with the Blazers, and then he came to Charlotte. Well, when he came to Charlotte, I was also working for Charlotte. So it's a relationship-driven business, as you know. So I got to know Joe a little bit through Chad. But when I came in to work for the organization on the first day when I came to fill in for Michael, everybody treated me so well, and they were so helpful, and they made me feel like I was a part of the team from day one, that I think that what I'm doing now in a bigger role, but now in a bigger role because I'm again filling in for someone because we have an illness on the roster. But from day one, everybody made me feel so good and so a part of the team and made me so comfortable that I think that's making what I'm doing now very easy. So I just tip my hat to everyone in the organization that I've been involved with. They have treated me like gold from the very first minute, and that has carried over to where we are right now tonight.
You know, Francis, you mentioned everyone welcoming you. It's not unheard of that people talk about, you know, how they love working with guys like Jeff Curtin and Dan Hyatt, and you get to work with Travis, who's wonderful. And you also mentioned the training staff earlier because Nasir shouted him out. So I'm glad that we've taken this time to really shout out some people behind the scenes that don't get those shout outs all the time that are very integral to this organization, whether it's on a game day or just what you see on your TV, man.
Right, and I'm glad because I kind of started at the top with Joe because I just wanted to highlight that relationship. But Jeff, of course, and Dan and Nick and everybody have treated me so well and have made my life and my job very easy so I can bring to the table what I have to offer, and they've made that very easy for me to do. So I hope I'm not leaving anybody else. I mean, Buck on the cameras, I mean, Bruce, all of those guys have been great, and I appreciate them and love them to death.
Yeah, man, there's nothing like working with, you're not working with coworkers, you're working with family. That makes everything easier when you go to work, right?
Yes, it does. It does. Jamie, working with Neil is the best. He's such a pro, and he's a Northwest guy as well. So when I met him, we had so much in common, and he knows a lot of the history of high school sports in Washington and in Oregon. And of course, he's a Blazer fan. He's a Duck. So we've had synergy in a lot of different areas. So again, I know I'm probably leaving someone out, but everybody has been great.
Yeah, you got to work with old Jamie Hudson, one of my best friends. I'm probably going to text her right after this, tell her I got to interview her boy Francis. So
yeah, well, we're gonna do it again tomorrow night, and hopefully we'll be sitting there and watching the Blazers get a dub against the Nuggets.
Absolutely. Now, one more question for you, Francis, before I let you go. I know you have obviously ties to the whole Northwest, and Seattle being a big part of that. And you talked about your time with the Sonics. I'm not a Sonic fan. I grew up here in Portland. I'm a Blazer fan, but it still cuts me to my core that I no longer have that I-5 rivalry. When are the Sonics going to come back, and how important is that market to the NBA's future? Do you see that happening?
Well, it does seem like there is definitely momentum that you can at least now say that it is going to happen. I don't really have a timeline, but if I had to guess, I'm thinking 3 years. But it is very important, I think. I think the league, they'll never admit it, but they should have never let the team get out of here. But this market is thriving. The dollars are here. The interest is here. The love for the game is here. I mean, we've had 25 first-round draft picks out of this city or out of this state since 1999. So, this is a basketball area. So I think it's coming, and I think it's going to be sooner rather than later because it's been a long time, and it's still an open wound that still hurts. But it looks like we're going to be able to reestablish that rivalry and get the Sonics back into the league, and then it'll be a happy day up here, believe me.
Well, if it does happen, Francis, I hope the ties here to the Blazers keep you around because it's been wonderful watching you on the TV screen for the last few years. It was great listening to you on the radio. I know Blazer fans echo that sentiment, and fans, you'll get to see him again tomorrow night when the Blazers take on the Nuggets. So, Francis, thanks again. Big shout out. Love all the work you do, and hope to talk to you again.
Thank you, and thank Rip City for welcoming me, and hopefully I can continue to deliver what you want. And as I said, let's try to get a W tomorrow night and try to stack up some wins here.